This is John Farrick, and we're going to do a little interview here. Actually, can I say the other one now? Oh, sorry. I'm also going to record on here just in case. So, can I say that other word okay? We're going to talk about Vietnam, 1964. And okay. Oh, okay. Sorry, I had to download this thing. Okay, here we go. Cool. Okay, so 1964. You were just out of high school, and
Yeah, I graduated in June from
Okay.
Loyola High School, just barely.
And how soon did you go to Vietnam after that?
November, I joined the Marine Corps, and then I went through training, boot camp at Camp Pendleton, and then infantry.
So how long was the boot camp?
Infantry training. I can't remember, but I think they shipped me over, and we stopped in the Philippines for some type of training. We took a boat called the. It was like a troop transport, plus they had like civilians on it. So we got that and traveled by sea.
So you didn't really know like that much about Vietnam until you got there, right? Like it was kind of like.
No, I didn't know too much about it at all. I had a friend that actually went to school with St. Agnes with me, and he joined the Marine Corps, and I asked him about it. And he said, "Well, if you join for 4 years, then you can get what you want. You won't get the infantry."
Mm-hmm.
And then what they have like what's called an MOS, which is where they're going to send you, and mine was 0311, and that was infantry.
Okay.
So I was expecting to get some job training. I joined the military because when I got out of high school, I realized I didn't have any job skills, and my neighborhood wasn't very good. As a matter of fact, the Watts riot broke out when I was on the Okanagan, the transport ship to Vietnam in August of '65.
Wow.
And my neighborhood, a couple of the stores got burned down in my neighborhood.
Oh wait, August of '65. That's where were you going then?
I was on a boat to Vietnam.
Oh, okay. So you didn't get to Vietnam till '65.
Yeah.
Okay. So you were in the.
I was in training, and and then you wait around a while, and then they.
So you're waiting in Pendleton. Is that where?
Yeah,
you're waiting?
Camp Pendleton. Yeah.
So then in '65 you go where you're like 19, right? 1965.
Yeah, I was 19. Yeah.
So when you got over there, was it kind of scary right away, or what was it like when you first got there? Yeah.
Well, I didn't know what was going on. It was just like, we didn't know too much about anything really. I think we're the second. Johnson ran on a sort of a peace slate that we were going to be like this country that created peace and all that. And then, I think it was in March he sent a contingent over to Vietnam because he said he didn't want feet on the ground. He didn't want that. He didn't want to send our boys to Vietnam.
Uh-huh.
But then I was in the second contingent of I don't know. I think there must have been like 500,000 people there.
Wow.
By the time I got there.
Wait, 500,000
service people.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, because they sent a bunch of people then.
So what was it like when you first got there? Like, was it?
Okay, we got off of these. I guess from the boat, we got on these amphibious landing vehicles, and then went into the Bay of Da Nang, and they let us out, and we all came out, and they had all of these Vietnamese ladies there with these like luau's, or you know, these little flower things, and so it looked like we're
So-
being welcomed.
And then, like, how long was it before, like, there was fighting and stuff like that?
Okay, well, Da Nang was just, it wasn't really heavily reinforced. They had all these bunkers around the area, and we really didn't have a mess hall. I think we ate like peanut butter sandwiches and stuff like that. And then they
And you
said-
had a gun with you, right?
Oh yeah, I think I had an M79 then,
Okay. Okay.
which is a grenade launcher. I was a grenadier. But then,
So did you learn how to use that when you were in Pendleton? Or at boot camp, or where?
yeah, a little bit. Yeah, a little bit.
So you used that sometimes in combat?
Well, I ended up with a M14 because later on my 45 discharged, so I ended up losing my grenade launcher. So I just had an M14. But then, yeah. I think
What is an M14? Is that like a machine?
It's like a rifle.
Okay. So,
But then they sent us out to the jungle from Da Nang. They sent us out.
so you were just in Da Nang for like what, like a week or something?
Yeah, probably a week or so, and then they sent us out in the jungle. We didn't know where the hell we were, you know. And we just set up camp there, and we'd go on these missions where we'd go into the villages and search, you know, and see if we could find some Viet Cong or, you know, any type of arms or anything like that. And then we'd also go on the rice paddies, you know, through the rice paddies. And
So what would happen if you found like arms or something like that, or the Viet Cong, you had to take them?
well, we didn't find too much of that. We started getting in firefights, and they started shooting. We started getting in a lot of combat.
How long were you there before you started seeing like people dying and stuff, you know?
Well, there was people that were dying all the time. Like there was this one platoon that looked like they were, I don't know if they were designated them to kill them or not, but they were just getting picked off, you know, by snipers. And then there's these bouncing betties. These are like explosive implements, and they pop up and then they shoot out. So people were getting killed by those too. They'd step on those and get killed. And then in I don't know if it was August or September, I was in machine guns because so many people were getting injured. They were just moving people around. And then they said, well, you're going to be in 60 millimeter mortars. So they had a training session out in the field for people that were going in 60 millimeter mortars. So I stayed back, but this reinforced platoon went out, and they got ambushed, and like 13 were killed and 31 were wounded.
And this is like,
So that was
not that long after you got there.
No, not too long.
Because you said you got there in like August or something. Was it August? Or July or
August or September. I think this was probably I think it was in late 65. I can't remember exactly.
So
Maybe September or August or something. But yeah, and that sort of opened my eyes. I said, man, you know, because a lot of people were just getting killed, and
so
they
you
weren't
kind
there
of
anymore. And then when that happened, they had all of the packs stacked up with all of their personal belongings.
So you kind of felt your mortality, like you felt like you could die any day.
Oh man, yeah, I was scared. I put a bayonet on my rifle. I had a bayonet on my rifle for a couple of days walking around with the bayonet on.
What was that for?
I don't know. I just thought they'd come to get us. You know, if they ambushed that patrol and killed all those people and wounded everybody. You know.
So did you ever like meet any of the Viet Cong, or did you ever?
Yeah, we'd get pinned down and then we'd shoot back and stuff like that. So, but yeah, it was like a lull period, and then we'd get hit,
And there were some accidental friendly fires, like Charlie Brown. What was the
not
story?
too many. There was a couple.
What was the story of Charlie Brown?
Well, I think he had served some time in the brig, and I think he got out. The brig is like, for disciplinary problems. And he's a black guy, and they were messing around, and then I think some guy put a gun to his head. He didn't think it had a round in it, and he pulled it and it killed him. And there was actually another guy, Waters, who was like this Okie guy from Illinois, and he was really a big, tall guy, and he'd get in a lot of trouble. Like, he almost started a race riot once because he was sitting next to this black guy, and just, I guess when they were on Liberty, and he just hit him. So it was pretty tense then.
Yeah.
But he was just he's just a combative guy. I guess he must have probably had some type of character disorder, but he wasn't a bad guy.
And you did some boxing too, right? There?
No, I didn't do any boxing.
Not there.
I boxed a little when I got back, but
Okay.
we didn't have anything like that.
So what would you guys do like day to day when you're kind of like, it's kind of like sometimes you're waiting, sometimes you're out in the combat, but what would you be doing like on a daily basis? I'm sure it's different all the time, but like, just like something you remember doing.
Well, part of the problem was they'd send us out in this 110-degree heat or whatever.
Yeah.
All day long, and then they would expect us to have perimeter watch. And there's no way you could stay awake. So I remember like falling asleep quite a few times, and we knew the enemy was out there, and if you fell asleep, they could cut your throat. If they could.
Yeah.
And I remember waking up once, and this old lady had this lantern, and she was holding it up right in front of me. Scared the crap out of me. And then another time, I remember just being paranoid out there because there was no way you could do that. There's no way you could walk around in the heat, and then at least I couldn't. And other people couldn't.
Did they give you any kind of stimulants or something to keep you up?
No.
Coffee maybe.
But I remember I'd throw stuff out, and I threw a flare out once, and it started this village on fire. I didn't mean to do it, but I thought I heard something out there. But yeah, we'd go on these patrols, and like some.
I feel like I heard a story when I was younger about like when there was one day where like a few of your friends were killed in one attack or something. What was that? Was that something that happened?
Yeah, we got pinned down. We were going on this beach, Anwa, near Anwa Air Base, and we were on patrol, and then there was like the captain was in this amphibious landing thing, and all of a sudden we heard these like shots, and then people started dropping, and one guy I talked to him, and he was going to get married when he told me, this and that. He got killed, and then we went up to this hedge line, hoping that we'd have more cover there. And I was on the line, and we were shooting over, and then I was talking to this guy, PFC Phillips, who was like probably your distance from me. And I looked over at him, and his head caved in. So he must have got shot in the head, or I don't know what happened to him. But a lot of people got shot that day. The foreman got shot.
Imagine being 19 and going through that. I mean, just like, it must have just really changed your whole worldview,
Yeah, then I had a machine gun, too, that was defective. And luckily, I found my old M14 because the guy that had it, Roscoe Harper, who was a friend of mine, had cracked up, and he had thrown his rifle aside. So I picked it up and
What was his name? Roscoe?
Roscoe Harper. He's from Washington D.C.
So
But yeah, a lot of guys were getting.
so you got there August. You're there September, October, November, and then
I can't remember the timeline because really there was nothing to.
and then December. Do you remember like when there was like the holidays? Were you thinking of back in America or anything, or was there any
I think they sent us back for a while because we had so many casualties. You know, they wanted to get new people back.
Oh, so they sent you back to America?
No, they sent
Oh.
us back to this barracks,
Oh, okay.
and I think that's when I got this this letter, Dear John letter from my girlfriend.
Uh-huh.
So I was all upset about
And she
that.
was the one that thought the Marines had a better uniform, right?
I don't know. It was kind of a, oh,
Yeah.
you know, I was thinking of the Air Force, but I was thinking of the Marine Corps. I don't know
So
what happened.
so then
I don't know if that
after Vietnam, where did you go? Did you go to Philippines or did you go back first?
They sent us back on a airline, and I think we went to Pendleton. I mean,
Back
I
to Pendleton.
ended up at Pendleton. I don't know where I came because I was.
So that was probably sometime in '66.
Yeah.
Okay. So back to Pendleton.
And you know it was upsetting for me because I had joined for 4 years, so I wouldn't get the infantry, right?
Uh-huh.
I wasn't happy at all about it because I knew the war was what couldn't be won, and it wasn't worthwhile, and we weren't doing anybody any good, and we were just sort of cannon fodder over there.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew that. So I definitely didn't want to go back, and here they were sending me into training, and they wanted me to go back and train people on rockets. Well, I hardly spent any time in rockets because they were sending people back and forth because people were getting wounded, right? So I wasn't in rockets that much.
Which was pretty chaotic. There's just kind of
Yeah, and I didn't want anything to do with guns. You know?
yeah. So did you tell them you weren't going to use guns or something, or
Yeah, I must have told them somewhere down the line because they, and I was a little depressed. I don't know if I was suicidal or not.
did they put you on some drugs?
Yeah, they sent me to like 4 or 5 different psychiatrists, and they all
Yeah.
came up with different. I mean, they must have known about post-traumatic stress, but they didn't. They wanted people so they could send them back, right? So I told them, I said, I'm depressed. I mean, I said I've had some problems at home, but I didn't have any problems in Vietnam or before that. Except when I got drunk once in Oceanside when I was.
So how long were you back in Pendleton before when you went back, you went to the Philippines, right?
Yeah, well, they were going to send me to Vietnam, so I put in for the Philippines, and then I talked to, I don't know if it was a psychiatrist or something, and he thought that might not be a good idea, but the orders had already gone through, so I said,
Why didn't he think that would be a good idea? It seems better than to go to Philippines.
well, because they put me on the gate.
Okay.
They put me on the gate at Subic Bay,
Which means
and what you do is you check people's guns in, because
Uh-huh.
people have guns, that live in Alongapo in the city,
Uh-huh.
and I didn't want to deal with that, so
So
they sent me to a psychiatrist there, and they sent me to this officer, and he said, "Arr!" He sort of got mad, like that I was some type of
rebel,
slacker or something.
because you didn't want to deal with.
But they sent me back, and then I went to San Diego, and then there's all these people with all these different problems. One guy from Texas, his hair turned white overnight.
Really?
So I don't know if that was Agent Orange or because he was afraid or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And there was all kinds of other guys. Like I remember some guy was cutting his arm, in the bathroom.
Wait, so this is, I'm sorry, where is this now?
That's San Diego.
Okay.
And then they had this group therapy thing, like they had 75 people or 50 people sitting around in a circle, you know.
So as bad as so, how long were you in the Philippines for?
Not very long.
But it must
Probably a couple weeks.
it must have been better than Vietnam at least, right? I mean,
Yeah, but I mean, I don't want to deal with all those people
Yeah.
coming in the gate.
so when did you go to Okinawa?
I went to Okinawa before. We stopped off in Okinawa before we went to Vietnam.
Oh, okay, okay,
And we did some training there, and then we stopped.
okay.
there.
So I got to get the timeline here real quick. So
That was in '65. when I was
so in
there.
'64, you went to
I joined.
You joined, and so you went to like in November or something, and you went to Pendleton and all that,
I went to San Diego.
San Diego,
That's where the
and then in
that's where the training was.
and then in like August of '65 was when you shipped out to. First, you went to Okinawa.
Yeah, I think it was July or August, and then we stopped in Japan.
How long
for-
were you in Okinawa?
I don't know. Must have been a week or so. No, it wasn't a long time.
So Okinawa, then Vietnam, and then after Vietnam, you went back to America before you went to Philippines, right?
Yeah, I went to Camp Pendleton, and then when I went to the Philippines, after I put in for that, then they sent me back to San Diego.
So once you came back to San Diego, you didn't have to go back to Vietnam or anything, right?
No,
Okay.
they were evaluating me, and then they offered me a general discharge, which is sort of like a bureaucratic thing, and I didn't want to accept that because I was screwed up, but it wasn't because of me. So I said, so they said, well, if you do the 2 years you have left, because I had signed for 4,
Mm-hmm.
then you can't get any type of psychiatric care or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they had put me on Thorazine and all kinds of other weird stuff,
Mm-hmm.
Librium.
So was that like antidepressants or what was that? What is that?
I think it was an antidepressant. It was sort of like one guy in UCLA called it a chemical lobotomization. So I don't know if it affected. But I would go out in San Diego and I'd drink and I'd have that, and I guess you're not supposed to mix them both.
Uh-huh.
When they had Liberty or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And,
So how much longer were you there?
I don't know. Eventually they sent me to Camp Pendleton,
Okay.
and then I worked.
What kind of work did you do there in Camp?
I worked in a place called Lake O'Neill, which is like, where people come for picnics and stuff.
Uh-huh.
And then I worked at the.
What did you do there?
I helped take care of the area, and gave out boat keys and.
Mm-hmm. So
And
by this time,
I was staying there, and I was so screwed up I couldn't really even go to the chow hall. I was drinking whiskey and eating crackers. That's how I was.
you couldn't go to the chow hall because.
'Cause I was paranoid, yeah.
Okay, so you were paranoid.
And then I would get some leftovers when people had picnics. If they left some food, I'd use that because there was a refrigerator there, and I'd actually stay there. There was a bed, a refrigerator, and bathroom.
Huh.
So I stayed.
So
there.
by then, were you like what, 20, 21?
Yeah, I guess I was 21, and I worked at the physical fitness center there too
The gym.
in Camp Pendleton.
And how long did you do that for?
Well, I must have done it for the rest of my time. Did the different places. The the golf course. I worked at the golf course, the physical fitness center, and the camp in Lake O'Neill.
So you did the full 4 years. You got out. You were 23 or 22 when you got out, I guess. Or?
Yeah, and they actually asked me to ship over.
Oh, and you said no.
I said no. I mean, they put me out through all this shit.
So did you get in trouble for saying no, or what?
No, they can't. It was like they tried to give you an incentive and give you some money to ship over.
Uh-huh.
So I had a peace sign, and I hit the peace sign, and I said no, thank you.
You're like, I don't feel like dying. So so then you were done.
I was done.
So what did you do when you were done, and how did you feel?
Well, I felt worse because here I had post-traumatic stress or whatever.
Mhm.
I was all stressed out, from being in combat and all that. And then my folks, I didn't get along with them at all because they were still for the war.
So
We got into some.
So you went back to your
arguments.
parents' house and you got.
Yeah, and that didn't work out. And I think I went to this guy, Mr. Thomas, who I'd done work for when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I went there for a while.
Oh, you stayed with him for a little while?
Not too long, and then I knew the Ryans and I knew Agnes.
Uh-huh.
So Carol Ryan's father had some property there, and he had this place on Manchester Boulevard
Like Manchester and Normandy?
between Normandy and Budlong.
Okay. That's really
So-
close to Marchand's, actually.
So he let me stay there, and that was after the Rodney what was that 68 riot? There was a 68 riot,
I'm not sure, I'll have to look that up.
and they burned a lot of that neighborhood too. I don't know if that was Rodney King, maybe.
No, Rodney King was in 92.
No, then it must have been. Let's see. There's a Watts riot, but there was something in '68 too that happened.
So,
So I stayed there. And
so did you didn't have to work right now because you had the GI Bill?
I got unemployment. They had the unemployment officer. Matter of fact, I saw my drill instructor there at the unemployment office.
Did you say hi to him?
Yeah, he's a good guy. His name is Gray. He's a black guy.
Okay. So, so we're in 68 now. When did you go to LA City College? Was that next year?
Well, I stayed on Manchester,
Uh-huh.
and then because I really couldn't go out, I was too paranoid to go out.
You know what? I just realized it's so weird because, like, when I first started going to LA City College, I was staying at Marchand's, which is really close to where you were staying when you first started going to LA City College. So did you take the bus?
No, I think I got a job for a while,
Uh-huh.
and then I moved to.
Oh, was
I
that
think it was. I moved to 35th Street.
was that the Paulus production job?
Yeah, I got a job.
So how did you get that job anyway?
A friend of George's knew somebody there.
And it was like a film company?
Yeah, it was like a crappy job. I'd take dump truck. I'd go to the dump. Sometimes I'd help out, or I pick scripts up sometimes from people that wrote scripts,
Mm-hmm.
But usually I just worked in this little room. You had to go in. The lady that was in charge, if you had to go to the bathroom, you had to go in and get the key.
Yeah. And that was out in Palisades, right?
Yeah, and then I decided to go to college on the GI Bill because I could do that.
Yeah. So,
So I checked that out.
so what year did you start going to LA City College? Around 69?
It was probably 69 or 70. I can't remember.
Yeah. And how many semesters did you go to LA City College?
3. That's where I met Frida.
So when did you meet her the first semester or?
I can't remember, but I remember that I had taken a couple college courses at Camp Pendleton, so I got credit for them.
Oh, cool.
So I got out in 3 semesters, plus
Wait,
maybe I went
what-
to summer school.
Okay.
So I got my AA degree there.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember any of the classes particularly, or?
Yeah, I liked a philosophy class, Dr. Lerner. He was good.
Uh-huh.
And he was like an old guy, and he told me that I had a lot of anger, and I have to sort of use it for my own good rather than letting it eat me up. So that was good. He was a good guy. And then psychology teacher. She was pretty good, and there was a lot of things that were free there. You know, we could go to plays, so Frida and I would go to plays and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't getting a lot of money, but it was plenty for me. You know, so I had this little room,
Mm-hmm.
and there was like 6 or 7 people, and we shared a refrigerator and a bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of
It's funny because I was on Berendo, and that was kind of like the place I lived down across the street. Probably like
Yeah.
there was probably about 5 people where I lived, you know. So you had some issues with some people at the college, at the place you lived, though, right?
Well, yeah, there were some
Berendo?
crazy people living there.
Yeah.
This one guy was sort of like a Pentecostal religious guy with a pew in his, you know, a kneeling pew in his room, and he turned somebody's gas on. It wasn't me, some other guy's gas
Because
on.
you got mad at him.
Yeah, and then there was another guy that was always having his girlfriends around, and then another guy that left a lot of pubic hair in the bathroom all the time. And
So-
then there was a guy named Roy who come in, like, I was going with Frida, and he'd come in and start talking and stuff, and I think the only guy that was sane there was a Japanese guy. There's a Japanese guy.
So, was that the last place you lived before you moved to Sonoma
No,
County?
we moved to then when Frida moved in, I had moved to this apartment on Berendo,
Uh-huh.
and so that's where we were. And then,
Wait, so you lived in 2 different places on Berendo, or just one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you lived in like a house and then an apartment?
that's where the guy stole my dirty laundry.
Was
from.
that in the same block, or was that a different
Yeah, it
block?
was right there, right, a couple stores down.
Was that on the same side of the street?
a couple?
Or was
Yeah,
it-
the same.
okay,
A
yeah.
couple houses down from.
Yeah, I think that was on the east side of the street, right?
It was on the same side that I was on.
Yeah. So,
So then we came up to Sonoma County, and Georgia and this other guy, I don't know if they're priests. I think they were priests. I don't know. But we checked out the area, and we found this place in Petaluma, so we rented that out, because we were accepted at Sonoma State, Frida and I. So we came up there.
so you studied psychology, right?
Yeah, I got my BA, and I got my associate arts degree in psychology, I think.
What made you?
Or I can't remember what it was,
What made you interested in psychology?
because I was screwed up.
So do you think it helped you at all learning about it?
Well, I think it helped a little bit, but I mean, it wasn't.
It's kind of like it helps you on an intellectual level.
It seemed
but-
like there was a lot of Vietnam veterans, combat vets at Sonoma State then, and the class was, this one psychopharmacology class was filled with veterans, a lot of veterans. Because there was a lot of them that were screwed up.
So when did you stop taking the drugs though? Was that in LA or?
I stopped taking that San Diego drug when they gave it to me there, and when I was at the at the psychiatric ward or whatever, and I stopped taking that when I had this lady that I knew in San Diego, and I had these drugs, and they made me feel like a zombie. So I just flushed them down the toilet, and I didn't take any after that. So they had these big vats they used to give them out, these big vats like M&Ms, and they'd give them to you.
So there's like a girlfriend in San Diego. She helped you decide to get off of them, or you just?
Well, I decided that too.
Yeah, but yeah, okay. So did you like LA City College?
Yeah, I thought it was great.
And you liked Sonoma State?
No, I had to work full time. I worked full time at the post
So
office.
you couldn't really appreciate it as much.
And then went to school full time there, so I was tired all the time.
Yeah.
And after you work for 12 hours or
Sure.
10 hours, you don't feel like going to class, you know. But I decided I wanted to do it because I was getting the money,
Uh-huh.
and also I wanted to, you know, get a college degree just in case.
So what was it like kind of going from like LA to like Sonoma County? It was like a lot smaller place and everything. Did you like that?
Well, we wanted to get away because LA was getting so crowded.
Uh-huh.
And we'd even, Frida and I'd go do our laundry like at real late at night, you know, there's a laundromat at the end of the street.
Uh-huh.
We just, you know, I didn't like the freeways and,
Uh-huh.
but LACC was pretty good. I liked LACC.
So like, how did you like the post office at first, or was it pretty?
Yeah, it was okay because I was getting a paycheck. 'Cause,
Yeah.
you know, Danny was born and I was trying to figure out how to make some money and I really couldn't get in any type of job where I was with people because I was having all those problems, you know.
So did you get the post office job like pretty quick after you moved here, or?
Well, I had taken the test in LA
Mm-hmm.
and then it was, I had it transferred up here. So they called me, I think they had a program for hiring vets.
Uh-huh.
So they called me once, and I think I had strep throat or something. We lived in a mobile home park then in Katati.
Mm-hmm.
And then in December 7th, I started there in 71.
Hmm.
And,
Just a couple months after Danny
yeah,
was born.
I was just glad to get that money, you know, because our rent wasn't that much. So
So
we finally had some money because we were living.
So at least your first semester of school, you hadn't had to work yet. So did you like the first semester? That first semester in 71?
It was okay, but we had to travel from Petaluma. It was
Oh.
really foggy, you know, and sometimes we had different classes and stuff. So it was, we didn't have any money. We didn't know anybody, you know.
Uh-huh.
And then Frida was pregnant, right?
Yeah.
So it was like, you know.
So,
But we met some people at Sonoma State once we got there, so that was good.
yeah. So, then Danny was born. Did that change your perspective at all?
Yeah, I was just glad that I had a son, you know.
I mean, that's like a
Because-
lot to happen in a pretty short
Yeah, because
span
I
of
mean,
time.
you know, here,
You know?
I mean, I had gone in to get training and stuff, and I was really in worse shape when I got out in 4 years than when I went in.
Yeah.
And I didn't receive any training because when I went to employment office and they matched me up with a job, they wanted to send me to this place on Mare Island that had like an armory, you know, where I was supposed to work with the guns or something
Mhm.
like that. Port Chicago, it had exploded during, you know, back in the, a bunch of black people got blown up there.
Wow.
And then they complained about it, and then they put them in jail and stuff, so. But that was during World War II.
So, so Danny's born July 71. Oh, so you started working in December 71.
Yeah,
So there's a few month overlap there.
yeah.
Oh, so you never so even like your first semester, you already had a kid and everything, right? So I guess that's not, because you guys got there in
February.
Yeah. So you started going to school.
No, February, let's see.
So you probably started going to school that next semester, right? Like, in 71, like right after Danny was born,
I don't know.
like August, September, somewhere around there.
I thought it was February when we started.
Oh, okay.
February? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
We went to school then in
Oh, maybe.
December of 71 I started to work. So,
Okay.
So I guess there was a couple semesters where.
So for a couple years, you were working and going to school.
Yeah.
Working full time, going to school full time.
Yeah.
So that must have been hard. Did mom, when mom had Danny, did she quit going to school for a while, or? Cause,
Well, I think she went to school,
oh,
but I think she maybe took less courses. I can't remember.
yeah, cause I remember she graduated when we were like
Yeah, it took her a
so-
while to graduate. Yeah.
So,
I can't remember if she took fewer classes or she dropped out for a while. I can't remember. She could probably tell you that.
so how did it feel like all of a sudden being a dad after all that you went through? Is that kind
Well,
of like,
there's a lot of responsibility, because I was.
I mean, it must have been stressful, right? I mean,
Well, yeah. Because I was working manual labor and
uh-huh.
had a bunch of problems, and yeah, I was.
And then soon in '73, Joey came along.
Yeah.
Was it kind of interesting having two?
Yeah, and we bought this place in '73.
Oh, that's right.
So this place was
What month did you buy it in?
November, I think. It
Oh,
was.
so Joey was like about half a year old when you bought it.
It was a dump. It really
Yeah.
was a dump.
Yeah.
I mean, it was.
But you were probably happy to have it. Anyway.
Yeah, but it was cold, and the window.
Was the
had-
neighborhood like worse or better back then? You think?
I don't know. It's sort of like bad all the time,
But back then it was like dirt roads and stuff. It wasn't as like, you know.
Yeah, there were dirt roads,
It was
and
more.
ditches.
It felt more rural or something back
And
then.
Newhall was all
Dirt.
dirt, and they had big ditches out in front. And I don't know what. I guess we must have had some sewer problems because we flushed the toilet with a bucket,
Oh yeah, I remember that.
and then our water supply. We had a well,
Yeah.
so it was kind of hard staying up with things, and we had some sheds that fell down, and but it was the price was right, but
It was like $11,000.
the house was in bad shape,
Mm-hmm.
and it probably had some bad stuff in it, like lead and stuff like that.
Yeah. But you guys remodeled it in like 1980, I think it was, or something. 79, 80, somewhere around there.
Yeah,
So, did you meet a lot of other veterans at the post office?
yeah, there was quite a few veterans there, and
So it seemed like you
we
kind of.
played ball.
It kind of seemed like you didn't mind the post office at first.
No,
right?
it was when they started bringing people from the outside, because we had managers that had worked there, and then they got promoted. But then
Yeah.
when they brought people from outside, they didn't know shit from Shinola.
So this was like in the 80s more.
Yeah, in the '70s, like I remember when I first went in the post office, the postmaster was Ray Branton. He was in the Marine Corps during World War II,
Oh, okay.
and he had this big rug, and he shook hands with me and he welcomed me,
Uh huh.
And here I had long hair and all that,
Uh huh.
but he was a good guy. And then they'd.
So it was kind
there
of
was
like.
a lot of Korean vets, and there were some World War II vets, and so there's
You know,
a lot of veterans there.
You kind of like grew out your hair. Was that kind of like a reaction toward like in the Marines you had to have like your hair buzz? Was it kind of like a
Yeah, once
like
they
a
made me get
rebellious?
my hair cut 3 times, I think it was in boot camp or something. So I was just sort of a rebellion that I didn't have to get my hair cut anymore.
Yeah.
So I let it go for a long time.
So your hair was pretty long, like in LA City College and all that.
Yeah, yeah.
Huh. So did you guys ever see any cool music in LA City College? Like any bands or anything play? No, just you
I
said
don't know. They had free stuff. I remember.
you said you went to some plays.
Yeah, like Man of La Mancha, and they had some other ones. And they had some free stuff there,
Yeah.
but I can't remember too much about it. I had a lot of tapes and records and stuff that I was getting accumulated, but I didn't. Up in Sonoma County, they had more of people sing, the folk singers, and
Mhm.
but I did.
So did you like living in Cotati?
You know, they actually did have a place at LACC. They had this music group there. We went to this little clubhouse right on Monroe,
Uh-huh.
and they had some music and
Uh-huh.
sort of like a bunch of hippies and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you, like, when you first moved to Sonoma County? I know you guys didn't really know anyone, but was it kind of nice to be out of the city?
Yeah, we
Like,
had a
did you
nice
kinda-
place. It was
You kind of like
upstairs
being out in the middle of,
in West Petaluma, and had a really nice view.
like,
of the
Stony
kitchen.
Point Road?
No, this was in Petaluma.
Yeah. Oh, do you?
Stony Point Road was Santa Rosa.
No, I know, but it goes into Petaluma partly.
No, this was in off of Washington.
Okay, Washington.
Yeah,
Huh.
yeah, it was a nice neighborhood.
So not like Washington and Kentucky, further west, right?
Yeah, up in the hills.
Yeah,
Up in the hills.
that's nice.
Howard Street.
Wow.
But I was afraid that Frida would fall down the stairs because there's a long stairs going down.
So, you know, like, you decided to go the no gun route after the war and everything, you know, even living in a pretty dangerous neighborhood, you know? Do you just feel like it's better not having a gun, like less chance of
Yeah,
something
because they're
happening?
too easy to use. You know, it was like I had my rifle all the time there in Vietnam, or some type of gun.
Uh-huh.
So it almost becomes part of you. You know.
Uh-huh.
So I didn't want to have a gun around.
Yeah,
And you know, I had some depressions and stuff like that.
yeah, so you're
I didn't want to use it. I didn't
Yeah.
want a gun around.
Also, so, you know, like, this neighborhood was a little bit, like, dangerous compared to, like, some places, but you kind of, like, after what you went through in Vietnam, it probably didn't really feel that bad to you, right? Like,
Well,
you
it
know-
did, because I've always felt like that's why I joined the Marine Corps, to get out of that type of neighborhood.
Oh, yeah.
And then here I end up in it again, you know,
Do you
I've
think you ever
always-
want to move to a quieter neighborhood, or are you just going to stick
Well,
it
yeah,
out?
but it's so expensive, you know, and
Yeah.
it's good to have a place, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, people can't even afford a place anymore.
Yeah,
So I was just, you know, hoping that the neighborhood would turn better, and it might, you know, but there's still problems with the. Seems like there's always been problems here.
yeah,
They had like, you know, gangs and this and that, and shootings, and drugs back then, you know.
Yeah.
SWAT team coming in, and especially 13, 14 and a half, they went in there, and they still have problems there.
yeah.
But now we got the cartels, you know, and
I think there's people dealing drugs over there and stuff, huh? But,
yeah, 13, 14 and a half, it's been, they got busted on March 12th, but and then they took another guy out around a month ago, but, doesn't seem like anything's working, because they have so many illegal immigrants
yeah.
that are into the drug deal, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of exasperating at times that it isn't more of a tranquil type of neighborhood, but I put the fence up, and you know, all my sheds I can go if there's a problem somewhere. Maybe that's why I put the sheds up. I don't know. Figure that one
You
out.
just need to get a good front fence, you know, so no one can come in.
A gate, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's part of the problem, is that they sent us over to Vietnam, and they could have used all that money and trained us to build stuff. And,
Sometimes I wonder about, like, you know how you have the Agent Orange and all that? Like,
Yeah, I was afraid of that too. I was always afraid.
I wonder if that's why you were, like, so anti-pesticide and stuff, you know? and like organic?
Well, I put in for, they had like this,
Like maybe it made you get more aware
they
of
had
that?
this class action thing, but I don't even know what happened to that, because they had a lot of information, and then when it was settled, and I didn't seem to get anything out of it, but it was settled, and then there was an agreement that they wouldn't have to share this information that they had gathered.
But they
Because
didn't
there's
give
a
you
lot
money
of
for it?
Huh?
They didn't give you any money?
No. There's a lot of residual effects from Agent Orange, and I know Danny and Joey were born with relapsed rectums, their rectums came out. And I don't know if, you and Brian probably have some, I don't know what problems, and I was, when I first got out, I used to be
I had
paralyzed.
I had OCD from the get-go, like as
Yeah.
young as I can remember, having to like jump up and touch the ceiling before there's 10 seconds.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that's from the Agent Orange.
I don't know.
Um,
But I remember I used to get paralyzed,
yeah.
so I had,
You used to get paralyzed?
yeah, for a period of time, if I was standing up, I'd just get like neuropathy,
Huh.
my body wouldn't move. So it's kind of scary, but I went to the VA and they weren't helpful at all. I remember I went there, I needed some problems, and the guy told me to get a punching bag.
Huh.
And so it just,
Did you know when Richard went, your brother went, like,
68, I think.
so he went after you, did you tell him like, you shouldn't go or anything, or did you kind of warn him at all?
I think I was still in the Marine Corps when he,
So you were back at Pendleton working.
yeah.
Did you talk to him about it, or
Well, I
did you
don't know,
just-
I think it happened pretty quick,
Yeah.
because he was going to school at Loyola
You would've-
U.
You
And then all of a sudden he ran out of money, and I guess they had that draft going on and he got drafted.
Oh, so he wasn't really like choosing to do it. He kind of had to do it,
No, he had to do it,
unless he went to like Canada or something.
yeah. But I think he was 2 years, so when he.
Did you guys talk about it when he got back?
Well, he stayed with me for a while there on Manchester,
Uh huh.
but that maybe he was.
So did he tell you about his war stories?
No, we never really talked about it.
That's surprising.
Yeah.
Did you tell him about your stories at all? Yep. Nope.
I shared that poem I wrote, but
Yeah.
kind of,
What was the poem about?
it's about Mennonite, when the people got ambushed and killed, 13 killed and 31 wounded. I wrote a poem about that.
What was it called?
Men of Mike,
Men of Mike. Why is it called Men of Mike?
because we're in Mike Company, 3rd Battalion, 9th Marines, Mike Company.
Okay.
So that's why I call it Men of Mike.
So, so you had, at least the GI Bill helped a little bit, huh? After
Yeah,
that.
it was minimal, but
But
I
you
was,
could
I
get-
was able to survive on it, 'cause-
You could get more benefits, but you don't. You refuse to get benefits now.
I don't know. I
You
just
still wanna look
I
into
just felt like it seems like the VA and the whole military and all that stuff is bankrupting the country,
Yeah.
So I felt a little conflicted about getting getting more. I get 10%, but I could probably get a lot more than that, but.
Yeah.
But I do want to get my teeth fixed. That's why I joined. I never got my teeth straightened out.
Man, I'm just like you. I got my teeth problems.
Hey, join the Marine Corps. They'll
Wait.
fix them for you.
You don't really have a dentist right now, do you?
No, I haven't had a dentist in a long time.
Man, I haven't either.
But if you don't eat any sugar, and if you do eat sugar, you brush your teeth afterward, then you don't have a lot of problems with that.
Yeah. So you could get your teeth fixed though, right? You have dental, right?
Well, it's limited. I mean, dental's like crazy.
Yeah. So what do you got?
That's where a lot of people declare bankruptcy, you know, on the,
I know.
because of the dental thing.
I know.
I mean, I was going in for a while and up in Farmers Lane, and they wanted like $4,000 for this little.
So what are you
procedure.
gonna do with your teeth?
I don't know.
Hmm.
I'm thinking. I haven't been to the doctor in 8 years because I just got completely disillusioned.
Yeah, I'm kind of
But,
the same way.
but I have coverage, and I have problems, you know, with my hip and my.
But you don't want to get a hip replacement.
No, and I that's covered under workers' comp, but they weren't doing anything either. I'd feel worse when I went in for their type of thing. So
Yeah.
I'm just, you know, I have to come up with something, but I'm just real skeptical about the whole medical profession and
Me too.
all of that. I mean, some of my friends went to the VA and they're dead now, you know.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Like they went there for what?
for any problems they had, you know.
Yeah. Interesting.
So they're sort of into the cut and
Do
slash.
you have
type of
any
thing.
Do you have any Vietnam friends that are still alive that you knew from Vietnam?
I had Don Rajod, and I used to get my first birthday card. I mean, my first Christmas card was from him. But he died. I don't know, probably at least 5 years ago.
I remember there was some guy that I think visited you once. I thought his name was Charlie or something.
No, we went. When I got a break from LACC, I went with my cousin, and we went to North Dakota, and then we went to
Oh,
Massachusetts and picked up Don, and we traveled around the country, and we dropped in on some of the vets. A guy in New York, and then we went to New Jersey, but he was a highway patrolman, so his parents were there, so we dropped in on them. And
yeah.
there is a guy that was from Moberly, Missouri. His name was Headinghouse, and I think he's still alive.
Man, I thought there was some guy. I
But
can't
Tom Robinson, I used to visit him. He's a black friend of mine up in Pasadena.
think- Okay.
But he was screwed up, man.
Uh-huh.
I went to see him once, and they took him away in the paddy wagon, and then another time I went to see him, and part of his ear was gone.
Huh.
So he had his problems.
How did you know that blind guy anyway?
I read for him at LACC to pick up a little extra money.
Didn't he came visited here, right?
Yeah, Richard Moore. Yeah, he wasn't a veteran. He was,
Yeah, I know. I was just curious.
Yeah, I used to read for him, and then
I remember he could recite the whole of Alice's Restaurant.
yeah, he probably had a good memory being blind, you know.
Yeah. So, did you ever talk to George, your brother George, about this stuff at all?
I don't
He said
think-
something about you were like court-martialed once or something. What was that about?
No, I just got it was like a hearing. It was like a hearing because this gunny sergeant, when I was working at the physical fitness center, he wanted me to tear up these clothes so that he could get more, you know, so that he could get two for, you know, if I tore them in half, he could say that there was two of them or something like that.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't want to do that, and then and so then he got me. He said that he wanted me to something about my pocket. My pocket was unbuttoned or something. It was, you know, he's Mickey Mouse and me.
Mm-hmm.
So I told him I wouldn't do it. I didn't want, you know.
This is just another soldier, or what was he?
He was a gunnery sergeant, yeah.
Okay.
And so he put these charges in against me.
Huh.
But I had a guy I worked with, and he came in and he said I was a good worker and all that. So they found me not guilty.
Huh.
think they shipped me somewhere else after that. I don't know.
That was Philippines. That was before Philippines, or no?
No, that was after.
Okay. Oh, so you went to another place after that?
I went to Camp Pendleton.
But you said they shipped you to somewhere else?
No, another job.
Oh, okay. Okay.
There was a physical fitness. There were special services. You know.
Yeah.
'Cause
So
I don't know. They probably didn't know what to do with me because I wasn't. You know, I wasn't going to go back to Vietnam. And I was getting short anyway. I worked on.
so you used to sometimes go into San Diego?
When I was in San Diego, yeah.
Gas lamp district and all that. Did you like San Diego?
Yeah, it was pretty nice. Yeah. I mean, what I saw of it, I was at La Mesa.
Oh, La Mesa's nice.
Yeah.
So, you decided to go back afterwards. You went back to LA though. Was that because like your family was there and stuff?
Well, where was I going to go?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you had enough money from the GI Bill for rent something, but I guess not. So you, after you got out, did you go to your parents for a little while?
Yeah, it didn't work out.
Was Rich at your parents' house when you went back? Or no, he was.
He was probably in the military.
Yeah, he was in the military by then. So,
But they were watching the news, you know, people in Vietnam getting killed and all these firefights. And I told them, I said, man, that war was no good. She said, well, we got to fight communism, you know. And so I got into some altercations with them, and I said, man, this ain't going to work out.
I think it was more with your mom than your dad, right?
Yeah, well, my dad was just, you know, he was sort of
Went along with her.
went along with her, yeah. Because he was never in the military, so he didn't know that much about it, you know.
Yeah,
And then he was deaf almost, you know.
yeah.
So there was no,
So it's too bad they couldn't listen to your side, huh?
no, it wasn't a place I wanted to be. It wasn't home.
And that's why you went to Manchester after that.
Yeah, because that was sort of, it was probably a good deal, really. I mean, it was a crappy place. But
Carol Ryan's dad's place
Carol, yeah,
by Budlong in Manchester.
on Manchester.
Yeah, but between Budlong and Vermont, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know that
It was
area.
better than not having anything, you know.
Yeah.
'Cause
How
it
long
was-
were you there before you went to Berendo?
I don't know. I think I got that job for Paulus Productions.
That's
And
cool.
then I went to 35th Street, and then I think I went to Berendo,
So 35th and what?
near Jefferson, near Vermont.
Okay.
Yeah, that neighborhood was going to be.
Man, that's quite a commute to go from there to Palisades.
I took the Santa Monica Freeway.
Yeah. That's kind of like when I used to, if I stayed at Marchand's and I went to Malibu, Pepperdine.
Pardon me.
So what makes you have a positive outlook after all the bad stuff you saw?
Well, I don't know if I ever had a positive attitude, but I just realized, you know, that I gotta bring money in, and you know, I had a family, I had kids to take care of, so I, you know, sort of like, gotta grow up, you know.
Yeah.
You can't.
But I mean, in general, you have, you know, for someone who's been through like a lot of war and stuff, you kind of have a positive disposition for the most part.
Well, yeah, because I was glad I wasn't over there anymore.
Yeah. So there's
You know,
kind of like
almost anything would be better than that.
So it's kind of like a mixture of gratitude for not being there, but also kind of bad memories. So
yeah, and the fact that your government sells you down the river, you know. I mean, it's like
it kind of
it's
gives
like
you a
they say that, you know, Well, honor
So is
the
that why
veteran. Honor the veterans. I felt more like a victim of a Ponzi scheme or something. You know.
So I think, like, for me, like, as a teenager, I was always distrustful of the government and wars and stuff like that. And I think it's probably just from stuff I heard from you.
Probably.
But you know, I sort of got into alternate realities of what's like that. A lot of times, what we're told on the news isn't really what's going on, right?
No.
So a lot of times when you see stuff that's on the news, do you feel like it's bullshit?
Well, they're liars.
Yeah.
You know, they're liars, and like look at like Vietnam and Afghanistan and Iraq. I mean, that's what Afghanistan was $2 billion, and they left $80 billion of armaments and guns and tanks, and the Taliban is using that now.
Yeah.
So not only did the war not work out, but then the enemy got and the same thing in Vietnam.
It seems like the people that make a lot of the money are the weapons people, like the Lockheed Martins.
And then Iraq, you know, that was a bunch of bullshit. And then they went in there and they thought they'd be done like in a month, and then Bush like started that whole civil war by laying off the military people. You know, they're the ones that could have helped with the government and stuff. So there's a lot of animosity for that, and so he created that whole situation. And then he had Iraq and Afghanistan going at the same time, so we couldn't afford, you know, afford that.
I got another question. Like, you know, you were kind of brought up a little in Catholicism and stuff. Did you have like a faith in God while you were in Vietnam at all, or did you pray or anything like that?
Well, I think I did. I had a scapular, but I did, you know, then when things bad like that happen, you wonder, you know, because I just...
You're like, is there even
people
a
that
God?
are praying and then they get killed, you know?
Yeah.
And so, you know, it makes you skeptical.
Uh-huh.
But I figured, you know, that probably like Max,
Yeah.
that, you know, there's a God, but there's people that do bad things too, you know, or put you in bad situations.
So,
But yeah, I went through,
maybe you got along with Max because you guys,
and you know, I always thought I'd get killed over in Vietnam. I could feel a round going right between my eyes because there's so many people getting killed. But it didn't happen, so...
it's kind of interesting because you got back and you're kind of depressed, but you're also kind of glad to be alive. It's kind of like a mixture, right?
Yeah, well, I sure didn't trust the military. The military is the most undemocratic institution there is.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, and then they're talking about democracy, and they're lying to the public, and Johnson gave them all this spiel to get elected in '64. I think it was in Costa Mesa, you know, in Orange County. He gave this speech about, you know, us being the beacon of democracy, and we're going to help all these
It
countries.
seemed like
out.
JFK wanted to keep people out of the wars, but then he got killed. So I wonder if, like,
No, he's the one that expedited it and started sending the troops over, and that was partially political because he wanted to get elected again. So he had all these Southerners, and he didn't want to. It would have killed his. You know, killed his political endeavors if he didn't back the war like he did.
so
But he ended up.
why were we fighting in Vietnam anyway?
Well, they're saying that the North Vietnamese and the South Vietnamese. The South, I guess there was a demarcation line after the World War II, and they thought that we could fight communism if we went over there and bolstered up the South Vietnamese. But there was this leader in South Vietnam that wasn't popular, and he was I guess a hand-appointed person that, I don't know if he was a Catholic or whatever, and most of the people were Buddhists, so they didn't really support him. And then they ended up in '63 having a coup that was supported by the U.S. and actually killed him and put somebody else in.
Yeah.
And so it was an unpopular government, and then and the Vietnamese never wanted.
I just can't
a
figure out
foreign
what
they never wanted a foreign agent in.
I can't figure out what America gets out of doing these wars. You know.
Well, 52, and I think Eisenhower started sending people over to help the French, because the French were over there. They had jurisdiction over Vietnam, and then they got confronted in this Dien Bien Phu, and they lost a lot of people, and so they had to get the hell out. And then we took over with advisors in South Vietnam, and then like I said, Lyndon Johnson said he wasn't, he didn't want to escalate the war, and they wanted to be, work on poverty and civil rights, and and the cities were having a lot of problems. But
Wait,
then they diverted all that money to the war in Vietnam.
I'm sorry to change the subject, but how old were you when you went on that cross-country trip with Paul?
That was in 71. I mean 70, I think.
Oh, 70? Okay. So it was before you guys moved here.
Yeah, it was. I was off in the summertime
Okay.
from school.
So you guys were dating at that time, but he was like, I'm going to go on a road trip. Were you like, okay. Do you remember that, Mom?
Yeah, I do. I wanted to go, but I was still living at home with my parents.
So they didn't want you to go?
No, we weren't married.
So that was the summer.
Uh-huh,
Wasn't too much longer.
no, we got.
Half a year later.
Yeah,
Oh, it's been a long journey, huh?
this is between the two of you. I'll listen to it another time.
The what?
I'd like to listen to it some, on the weekend.
Okay, it's over. It's over.
Okay. Thank you, Dad.